In terms of legal migration, they're beginning to get there. But in terms of the assimilation of communities, I think that's the problem that is rising down. I don't think you can have a situation where you have communities operating, as I say, with their own Sharia law courts and so on. I just don't think that's going to work in a country like the UK. They've got to do something about this. Now, how you do that without inflaming a lot of tensions on both sides, I don't know.
Right, so just one more on this then. So really, like, in the most granular way, what do you do? It seems to me that no one in Europe, because the same problems that you just laid out there, Germany's having their version of it, France is having.
Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, actually, if you were prime minister, what would you do?
Well, it's difficult. I don't pretend for a moment it's easy, but you certainly, on the small boats issue coming in, which is, to me, is part of the problem, but it's not like the problem, because you're getting 50, 60,000 people coming in illegally on the southern border. You've had 10 million come in the Biden administration, so it's all relative.
They think it might be 20 million. I mean, the numbers are just impossible.
Right, so they clearly just completely deliberately lost control of the border, it seemed to me. We've not had that. We've had successive governments trying to control it. We've got to try and do a deal. I keep saying, what would Trump do? He'd say to Macron, right, here's the deal. If you don't stop these people getting on these boats, your end, which is the only way to really stop it. Once they get out there into the English Channel, really there's hardly any way to stop it. So you've got to stop it at the French end before they get on the boats. You just say, right, do what Trump would do, 1,000% tariffs until you sort this out. I suspect it would get sorted very quickly. Remember the backdrop of Brexit and how much ill feeling that caused with the rest of Europe, with the UK coming out of the European Union. So the French have no great allegiance to us now in terms of helping us. Why would they? Right? We're no longer part of the club.
Right.
We've left the club. So it's like, screw you. You've got a problem at your end. We don't care.
They're not big on helping in general.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a very French response. But I would do the Trump response, right? Just tariff the hell out of them until they stop it. In terms of legal migration, they're beginning to get there. But in terms of the assimilation of communities, I think that's the problem that is rising down. I don't think you can have a situation where you have communities operating, as I say, with their own Sharia law courts and so on. I just don't think that's going to work in a country like the UK. They've got to do something about this. Now, how you do that without inflaming a lot of tensions on both sides, I don't know. Because at the moment, you've got people like Tommy Robinson, who over here is kind of sainted. Let me tell you, I do not view him as a saint. It's like he's got a message that in certain parts of his message he's right. In other parts, he's woefully exaggerating the situation for his own gain. And he's probably the worst possible messenger. However, when he talks about the grooming gangs in the north of England, which were horrendous and were covered up and were all British Pakistani men doing this to young white girls, he's right. So there are lots of parts of what he says which I think he's right about. But the idea that he's the standard bearer for kind of a solution to this which doesn't result in a violent solution, I think is for the birds. Because his whole history says otherwise.
Yeah, so what is it about him that you don't like? I know you guys have a bit of a history, and I think maybe you banned him from the show or something like that. Because I see him as one of the few people standing up for your country. Yeah, I know.
He wants you to see him like that.
He's
incredibly disingenuous. Like, if you talk to Tommy Robinson, I've asked him on my show now, every week, I call him Bottle Job on X, right? I was like, come on, Bottle Job. You familiar with the phrase Bottle Job? No. It's an English phrase that means he's got no bottle. He's lost his bottle. He's got no guts, right? And there's a reason he won't come on my show, but does everybody else's shows. Other people haven't scrutinized, as I have, actually his track record on stuff and what the reality is. Take the story he loves to tell on American Airways about the young Syrian boy who he lost a court case to. He made a documentary about this boy and about how violent he was and so on and so on. It was full of lies. The Syrian boy sued him. He won, 6-figure payout. He knows this, Tommy Robinson. His real name, by the way, is Stephen Yaxley. He's not even called Tommy Robinson. A lot of it's a facade. He sued him. And the film was a deliberate defamation because it was a breach of a court order. That's why he went to prison. He wasn't sent to prison because of a free speech argument. He was sent to prison for contempt of court because he repeated lies he'd said about this young Syrian kid, which were proven to be untrue in a court case, which is why the kid won the court case. So Tommy Robinson wants to present himself as a great freedom of speech king. And a lot of Americans lap this up because they don't actually look into the facts of it. I just urge everybody, go and study the story. Go and study the court case, study the resolution, study the contempt of court law in the UK. He knew what he was doing. So, look,
I can't speak to that, but what I can speak to is from an American perspective, when I see someone out there who's leading these marches with your flag, who's proud of your country, who wants to address all the things that you just laid out there as problems, I see that as someone that's a good guy. I can't speak to all 10 of the things that he's done or not done. I would say this. I think there are certain things he's right about and there are certain things he's wrong about. One thing he's not is a good guy. Right, he's a convicted football thug. He's a convicted fraudster. It's not even his real name. He deliberately defamed this kid and then went to jail because he breached a contempt of court. So I don't think he's a good guy. However, on things like the grooming gang scandal, he was loudly shouting about this long before many in the mainstream media were doing so, and he was shut up, and there were attempts to silence him and censor him, and he was absolutely right about that. So, he's a complex character, Robinson. I would love to have him on my show. I'm sure he watches this show. Yeah,
I think he
likes
you.
He likes me.
Right. So, Tommy, if you're watching, Stephen.
Well, that's good to hear.
Tommy, come on, you and me, one-on-one. There's a reason you don't want to do it, because you know that I will ask tricky questions about a lot of the stuff you claim is your version of events, but we both know isn't. So, look, I don't pretend for a moment he doesn't resonate with a lot of British people, nor do I pretend for a moment there aren't certain elements that follow him who are violent right-wing thugs who just want to punch up and actually want racial lack of cohesion. But I do think that he himself is becoming a bigger and bigger figure in Britain because of the failure of successive governments to control immigration. So it's not like he's wrong about everything. He's not.
Right. I don't want to spend too much time on him, but I think actually if there were other people in your country that seemingly were standing up for your country properly and dealing with these issues, then that probably his face wouldn't be out there as much.
I think that's entirely right. And I think it's incumbent on the elected officials. I say to Tommy Robinson, go and run for office, if because it's interesting. Even people like Nigel Farage, who now have all the traction with the Reform Party, he has no truck with Robinson. He won't take his. They're very split.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a sort of on the right an agreed position about this stuff. There's not. A lot of people view Robinson like I do, including Farage. But I think that. It's disingenuous and intellectually dishonest to say that there are not certain things he's been absolutely right about. The grooming gang scandal was horrendous, one of the worst scandals in Britain in modern times, and he was one of the loudest people calling it out.
If you're tired of the mainstream media circus and want more honest conversations, go check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a wide variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.